Welcome to the Truth Unveiled tape group, Joel Goldsmith tape group. We listen to a tape today. We're meditating. We're taking a deeper look at the idea of spirit, and so there's a lot to do today. And so I'm really happy that you're here and that you want to be part of this and discover more. And see, the great thing is that this is not like going to school and listening and trying to understand the concepts or anything like that. So that's so great. So you're some kind of school, but you don't have to remember anything. You just have to let it resonate. Now that's easy. That happens by itself. If you're open, it resonates with you, and there's your recognition. So there's no learning really. There's not really a doing connected at this at all, and that makes it also different because if I have to listen to a theologian talking about God, having all kinds of concepts about God, then I would be bored very quickly. I have listened to that, and that's not really doing it for me. So any idea that I hold about God would not be God, so why listen to it? So here, like I said, the thing that happens is resonation or recognition, or moments of union and communication that are really inspiring and moving you. And beyond this moment together, that happens too. Now that's expanding. It's expanding itself just by you staying, in fact, right here, not by doing anything. Now, in fact, the whole training is not doing anything. It's bringing yourself back in this moment. Now, this moment, did you already enter into it? No, you did not. You missed it. So here are many attempts today to return back to this present moment, because as one of us was demonstrating this, it was Joel Goldsmith, demonstrating to practice the present. And this is what we do. Staying right here, not moving in any direction, not picking up any idea, not because we don't need it. Like ideas, we know what ideas did, and it brought us the world that we see. Now, when that is enough, when you are done with that, then something else can happen. And this is exactly why we are here, to in fact just practice the presence. No, you don't have to pick up an idea. No, you don't have to be concerned. No, you don't have to think about tomorrow. No, you don't have to worry about any kind of thing that seems to be happening to you or to someone else or any of this. It's like, no, the only requirement is to stay right here and not move at all. Then you come into the direct adventure beyond the fear. In fact, you step into, as if you open a door and you step into a whole new world where there is no fear. You stay right here. There is no fear. You stay right here and there is no fear. You move 1 inch and you're in fear. You pick up an idea and you're in fear. But you stay right here. There's no fear. It's like a riddle. Just made it up. I could sing it too. So in other words, what happens when you stay right here, there's fresh new inspiration coming to you all the time. It tells you everything you need to know all the time. Everything you need to know, everything you need to do will be told, will be given to you. It's literally what Joel shares in the idea of listening to the still small voice. That's this one voice at the beginning of everything and at the end of everything. It's the Alpha and the Omega. It's happening right here, right now. So whether you go take your little detour and come back here, that's perfectly all right. That's what I mean with the end and the beginning. It's like they will come together And when do they come together? Well, it's right here, this moment, this instant. And here exactly is where you could call it enlightenment. I don't care what name you use. It's happening right now. It's not something that you have to earn. It's not something that you have to deserve. It's not something that you have to fight for. No, you don't have to do anything for it. So relax in that as much as you can. Breathe, release. Whatever you think you need to do will bring you into fear in that sense, because if everything is whole and perfect in this moment, then there's no such thing as a future, there's no such thing as time, then we're brought back to this infinite instant where everything is whole and perfect, where your body starts to shake and all kinds of things are happening with it just because you enter more to this present moment. Now this is in fact, the healing procedure you're in. Returning back here, returning back to this moment. Using meditation. Why do you do that? To come back to this moment. Not to run away from it, but to actually stand still and to go through whatever you think you need to do, and not doing it, not getting into action of taking a tour from this place of peace. So that's what we practice also in the meditation that we're going to do. We're going to do that now. It's like quite a contemplation that Joel gives us in one of the letters from Consciousness Transformed, probably. I always forget the name of the book, but it's like a compilation of 1963 Hawaiian talks, hotel talks. So that's the great thing that we're going to do now, to be still, to be right here, not to move our minds in any direction, just to sink deeper into this present moment, practicing the presence, to come into receiving and recognizing the source within us as the source of life, as the source of our being. The source of our good is this invisible spirit, which in reality I am. Therefore it is always closer than breathing. Even on the battlefield, your life is in spirit, governed and controlled by spirit. There is the universal belief that life is dependent on the body, but your transition reveals to you that your life is in divine sonship, not in a piece of matter. Yes, your life is in fact that you are the divine Son. But if you do not consciously know this truth cannot make you free because of universal beliefs. Consciously, we have to make the transition. You must know the truth, and the knowing must be a concrete act. The truth is, my life is in and of God, hid in spiritual worship. My life is eternal because I am the offspring of God, made of the same substance as God, Spirit. My life is not at the mercy of matter in any form. My life is spirit, and it lives in spirit. My life is under spiritual law. It may not be a problem of health or life. If it is a problem of supply, you have the same principle. My supply is not in money, but in the spirit which I am. All the supply I will ever need unto eternity is in spirit, in my sonship with God.
La source de notre bien est cet esprit invisible qu'en réalité je suis. Par conséquent, il est toujours plus proche de nous que notre propre souffle. Même sur le champ de bataille, votre vie est dans l'esprit, gouvernée et contrôlée par l'esprit. Il existe la croyance universelle que la vie dépend du corps. Mais votre transition vous révèle que votre vie se trouve dans la filiation divine, pas dans un morceau de matière. Oui, votre vie résulte du fait que vous êtes le Fils divin. Mais si vous ne connaissez pas consciemment cette vérité ne peut vous rendre libre à cause des croyances universelles. C'est consciemment que nous devons faire la transition. Vous devez connaître la vérité et la connaissance doit être un acte concret. La vérité est ma vie est dans et de Dieu, cachée dans la dévotion spirituelle. Ma vie est éternelle parce que je suis le rejeton de Dieu, fait de la même substance que Dieu, l'Esprit. Ma vie n'est pas à la merci de la matière sous quelque forme que ce soit. Ma vie est esprit et elle vit dans l'esprit. Ma vie est soumise à la loi spirituelle. Il ne peut exister un problème de santé ou de vie. S'il s'agit d'un problème d'approvisionnement, vous avez le même principe. Mon approvisionnement n'est pas dans l'argent, mais dans l'esprit que je suis. Tout l'approvisionnement dont j'aurai jamais besoin pour l'éternité est dans l'esprit, dans ma filiation avec Dieu.
Thank you so much for joining in the meditation. So we're present, we're right here. So did you get it together, so to speak, not to pick up any thoughts during your meditation? See how great practice that is, to become still and to relax into it. That's why Joel is always emphasizing it. It's like, yeah, don't forget to be still, to sit still, to meditate in silence. This is where you will receive it. What are you receiving? Well, what is given in this moment. Because when you're silent, you're not distracted. So one thing that comes up today with the idea of spirit is the invisibility of spirit. Like spirit is invisible. Now that seems to be also mystical or mysterious also. It's like it's not visible. And that takes away the strategy you have with your human thinking. The strategy or the defense mechanisms that work for you, say, when you see yourself as a human being, are comparison and images comparison. You compare yourself to an image of something or someone else, it's in fact always image related, because you perceive it, so it is like that's that and that is that. That is here and that is there. You can organize your whole world with the idea of images, and here spirit. It's invisible. And nothing to compare it with. It's omnipresence. It's everywhere. Nowhere to find it. Like, why is that? Why is it so hard to find it? Because it's everywhere. So you can't miss it. You cannot lose it. It's impossible if it's everywhere. Now here we are. Here we are in our human start of our life and moving on, continuing, getting to end of ideas, seeing like, well, this cannot be it either. All these images cannot be it either. There must be something else, and something happens. It's like now we are in fact allowing something to come to us, like becoming conscious of that is not visible. But now what? If it isn't visible, then how would I know it is there? This is a very normal thought of anyone in an awakening process. Like, now what do I look for? And Joel says, look for a still small voice within you, within me. But well, how can I hear it? I don't have ears inward. I don't have ears. Now I cannot hear it. Now what? And it's like, now you sit still and something will open up and suddenly start to speak to you. Not necessarily with a voice, but certainly it is speaking to you. You will start to experience light or communication, connectedness. And it takes a moment to not pick up any ideas and thoughts and images, to see how everything is going for you. So it's like Joel, in this talk that we're going to listen to, Joel is referring to, in fact, spiritual progress. How do you do that? How would you know where you are in your spiritual progress? How are you going to measure that? If you're using images, it's like, well, I can sit still for an hour. Now my neighbor can sit still for 2 hours. He must be more advanced. Or who knows what your comparison will be. But you will have to compare then images. Because in spirit, is there a difference between you and your neighbor? No. So there's literally nothing to compare yourself with. So this is interesting. So the whole idea of images are basically undone in this process. Now you can say, like, in my spiritual progress, the more I recognize things to dissolve, in fact, or the more I see that the images, the form that I see is not determining anything for me, or less and less and less and less, until I see it for what it is. It's like, how could it possibly have an effect on me if I'm connected with source, if it's all coming from the source that we share? How can something else then tell me something about myself? Or where do I compare myself with? That would be impossible. So this is great progress then, in fact. So now here, the more I'm able to stand still and not pick up any thought, and not let myself be drifting off in mind wandering about how I should do tomorrow, or how to manage this, or how to manage that. The more I'm able to do that, the more I will be present right here. And the more I'm present right here, the easier it will get for me, because there's literally nothing to be concerned about. Like, I would not know what to think about. In this present moment is everything given. It is in fact an infinite moment, expanding in all directions, giving me all possibilities all the time. And then it's not that I have to choose what to do, where to go, and be concerned with that. No, even that is given in this moment. Like, I cannot be in the wrong place. I cannot do the wrong thing. I cannot make a mistake, in fact. So this is an interesting subject, and you might not see it directly, that spirit, in fact, is the manifestation of this present moment, but it is. Like, where else would it be? Whenever would it be? It cannot be any other time than now. So it's literally the manifestation of right here, right now. So that's why it's also like a bridge or a channel, you could say, a channel in which communication takes place, of which you are a whole part. That's also inevitable, because since there is nothing else going on, the relief is here, the release is here, the freedom is here, the peace is here. And so this takes away all the thoughts that have to do with the future, with something that will come, of something that will happen, in order to set yourself free in the future, a future relief. Yeah, that's what you hope for, and that's what you think is always there, like as an alternative to the failure or the mistake or the difficulties that you just experienced. You think like, now here's another option. I'm going to try that. So that might bring me a different outcome. And then coming back to our practice, it's like, that is not going to happen. You have tried and you have failed. You have tried and failed again. You have tried, and you can be as hopeful for the future, so to speak, as you want, but the future will not be different than the past. So, because in fact, bringing past and future together, we end up right here and saying like, well, if it isn't now, it's not going to be there. This is everything there is. There's literally nothing and nowhere else to go. In this silent certainty, in this silence, in this omega point, or however you want to call it, in this presence, is where you literally disappear into the communication with Source. Spirit communication, great, another word for it. But actually, it's an occurrence that can take place in this instant. It cannot happen another time. So here we find ourselves in the healing procedure that Joel is offering you in almost every talk. It's like he's offering you the present moment. He's offering you, no, release your mind, release ideas. No, it's not anywhere else. It's right here. You don't have to look for it outside yourself. There's nothing there. So bringing back to here, it's like here is where everything is given. You want to experience an infinite moment of the love of God, it's right here. You want to experience presence and perfect health, it's right here. Yes, but, and then you go with your mind, yes, but this and this and this is what I still feel. And then, no, wait a minute. Let's bring it back right here. Don't pick up that thought. You don't have to pick up that thought. You don't have to organize your mind with, oh, wait a minute, this is me. I already defined that. Now I'm going to bring that into this present moment and I want to experience pain. Or I want to experience abandonment or lack of limitation. Well, you can, but like, no, here it is, here it is, here it is. So that's what's coming back continuously. Now Joel expresses it too in the talk, and I'm going to share some of the expressions. It is only because we have been touched by the Spirit, and we do not know whether at some moment or other in our experience we just opened ourselves, sort of, oh God, or whether someone else praying reached our consciousness. It may have been someone on this side of the veil and may have been someone on the other side of the veil. It is only because we have been touched by Spirit. And we do not know whether at some moment or other in our experience we just opened ourselves, sort of, oh God, or whether someone else praying reached our consciousness. It may have been someone on this side of the veil or on the other side of the veil. We have been touched by Spirit, otherwise you would simply not be here. We have been touched by the presence. We have been touched by this infinite moment right now. Many times students write me and say, oh, this came to me, I suppose you knew it in advance. No, Joel says, I did not know it. I wasn't thinking of them, and I wasn't thinking of what message God was going to have for them. Why would he? So Joel in another moment shares, all I did was I be absent from the body, be absent from the mind, and let the spirit perform its function. Not try to do it for the spirit, not try to do it with the spirit, but let the spirit do it itself, so that I do not have any graven images. See, here it is, images. No, it's like, no, that's happening to me. The spirit is doing the work for me, because in fact, I cannot distinguish from this present moment. But it's only in the highest moments when selfhood, that is the selfhood called Joel, completely disappears and spirit itself is living the life. I don't know what would happen to anybody if they were attained that and maintained it on earth forever. It is an experience that comes. But for the greater part of our lives, just remember, it is as if there were still a Joel, but he's pretty empty. He has no qualities of goodness because it's the Father working through. Well, it's that way in meditation and treatment. At first, there is a me listening for the still small voice. There's a me inviting God to speak. But then as I get into that listening attitude, this me disappears. And all there is that presence fulfilling itself. And if somebody's healed, it is doing it. If somebody benefits, it is doing it. If somebody becomes aware of the presence through the infinite way, this is doing it. So here are some expressions, like I said. So it's all in fact referring back to the same. Here, well, it is that way in meditation and treatment. At first, there's a me listening to the still small voice. There's a me inviting God to speak. But as I get into that listening attitude, this me disappears. I'm sure that is your experience too. It's like, and that's how easy it is. So first you worry about it and you think you need to do something and you study for it and you read enough that you know what to do. And then suddenly you're just melting into it and actually coming into communication, what feels completely natural to you. It's not, in that sense, not a big change at all. It is more like a dissolving factor that is suddenly melting into something where it doesn't need to distinguish itself to anything. It is convinced it doesn't have to do anything. It is already a whole part of it. Now that experience just expands and gets deeper and deeper by just allowing that, in fact. So, yeah, you can say like when in meditation, when you so-called lose yourself, then in fact you're suddenly out of your body awareness too. So you literally take a leap into infinity, a leap into timelessness. And it doesn't even need to have words, but I'm saying it anyway. So it's like the familiarity with that occurrence is only comforting. It is not doing anything else. So that's the beauty of presence. Like, it is just that you forget that it's there. You forget it because you already have an idea. You forget it because you think there's a future. You forget it because you think there's a world. And you forget it because you think there's a who knows what occurrence that has an influence on something for you. And that dissolves again back into this present moment. So that's why Joel says like a couple of times a day, just take time to really sink into presence. If you can do it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that's fine. But say, come to this for yourself. Come to this silence. Be lifted up. Be quiet. And take time. You will get into the practice of that. Like eventually you will take more time to do that, just because it is so effectual, you could say. It's so efficient. It saves you so much trouble. If you don't stay here, then you're in fact using up your energy. If you stay right here, you're rejuvenated continuously. It's like everything, and you keep all possibilities open. If I choose one option here, like here, I mean in the world, if you choose one option and think that that's the best for you, then you walk that path until you discover that isn't it either. So that's like a lot, it takes a lot of energy. Now imagine that that energy you can hold. You don't have to waste that, so to speak, to something that you were not inspired to do, but thought you had to do. So how would the world look if everyone was inspired being present all the time? It's like, well, it doesn't really matter how the world will look, but it's more like, well, it saves you a lot of doing, because it is not about doing. Being present is about being, and not about having or doing. So here we practice and here we do. It's great. So I'm happy that you joined today in this, because it's a healing procedure that we're in together. So it has effects on everything. When you take more time to be still, when you allow deeper to release your identity, in fact, go deeper into timelessness, suddenly you recognize your connectedness with your brother. And here's a situation in which something opens up that you can give to one another, and having a recognition of something really beautifully deep, a deep connection that, say, goes way beyond human behavior. That's the beauty of it. It's like it just keeps expanding, and you can laugh about things that that no human being would be able to do. Just because you recognize what it is you're doing, even in your attempts to do something, suddenly you can laugh about it. Now, what a big relief is that, not to take humanhood serious. Try that. It's like you can laugh about the thing that you just took serious for yourself for a moment. You laugh about it together, and it's like, oh my God, can you believe it? I don't have to be locked into that idea anymore. I don't have to be locked into ideas of sickness, of future relief, of future happiness, of all the things we project into the future, hoping it will come back to us. Like, no, we're getting back here. Like, no, you don't have to go anywhere for this. Stay right here. And there you go. Suddenly you feel you're lifted up, and suddenly you feel the relief of, oh my God, I didn't have to do that. I don't have to do that. Oh wow, that's so amazing. So it changes everything, and you know all about that. You are experiencing this on a daily basis by just following some instruction, but most of all, looking for your own experience in this, because nobody can tell you how to do this, but you are the one who can receive this, and this is just for you. This is not for anyone else. This is just for you, because you're ready, and because you can hear this. You're touched by spirit, is what Joel says, like you're touched by spirit. That's why this comes to you. Now you are priority number one in this, in the sense of your peace of mind is going to bless the whole world. So that's like top priority. So peace first, meditation first, stillness first. You can always step out of any situation with an idea like, I need to come to myself first before I decide anything, do anything, say anything. I need some time for myself to calm down and to come into, yes, here it is. Oh, thank you. So good to be present this moment and not having to think about it. Now you enter back into the situation that you were in, and the situation already is completely changed, just because you decided to take time to come to yourself first. Now suddenly all options are open. It isn't anymore the way that it looked before, this tiny contracted situation that you find yourself in. No, suddenly it's open. New things are suddenly possible that weren't possible before. Who did that? You did that by just allowing that to occur. Now this is you as the practitioner. This is you as the healing consciousness walking around. And are you good at that? Do you need to be good at it? Well, if you think you're doing something, yeah, but you're not doing anything. So let grace do the work. Let's light do the work. Let's spirit do the work. And it's like that's the most efficient way of doing anything, of deciding anything. Give it all away. Give it all away. It's really beautiful. All right, so Joel was going to tell us more about that. And so I'm going to start the tape. It is beyond of above the letter into spirit, 157b. I remember it now.
Horrible fear of bombs and wars, all of which would be dropped if they had any assurance at all of God's grace. Why should they fear bombs? So they want what we've got. And if they had the capacity to go our way to get it, they would be on our path. And they cannot have the capacity until a spark touches them. And that spark may come through our prayers, because just remember that we are bringing Protestant ministers and Hebrew rabbis into this. So it must be our prayers bringing them. It isn't their Protestant prayers or Hebrew prayers doing it. Or it may be, as I said, the mediation, the prayers of those in monasteries or nunneries or on the other side of the veil. But once we are touched, and this is our path, we must not look back. Now, of course, that's pretty easy if you look on it in one light, because in this light you can't look back. You can't look back anymore on the things that you once thought were pleasures and profits, because the degree of the spirit that you have attained has wiped that out. You never again can be thrilled by the things of the flesh. You never again can be thrilled by the profits of the pocketbook. Those things can only be incidental once a person's touched. But there is still the possibility of turning back and fearing the things that we've always feared. And the reason for that is this: the last enemy that shall be overcome is death. And whether or not you will agree on it, in every human soul there is a fear of death. Oh, they may say not. Now, I have witnessed too much. There is, whether or not they're conscious of it, there is that fear of the final death. Sometimes it isn't a fear of any horrors over there. It may be just a fear of the unknown, or the fear of leaving comfortable places or well-known places. Just as always there have been people who migrated from foreign countries to new countries, and then all the others stayed behind because the misery of what they were in was better than the promise of the unknown. And sometimes I think that handles us too, that even the miseries of human life would keep us here just because of the fact that what lies ahead is to a great extent unknown. And therefore, the things that might ultimate in death bring about the fear that can hold us back in our spiritual progress. Therefore, at some time or other, we must overcome the fear of death and come to the realization that it isn't death actually, it's a transition into a different state of experience, just like the worm that becomes a butterfly. I suppose the worm thinks he dies, but actually he doesn't. He becomes a butterfly. And so it is that we do not really die, regardless of what the appearance may be. We make a transition into another phase of life. And then, when we understand that, the fear of death is gone. Because it isn't death anymore. We realize this: that just as you couldn't stay a child forever, you had to face the fact of becoming youth. But even if that was a wonderful period of life, and I suppose to a lot of people it was, no one can stay there. They must face the realities of adulthood and the responsibilities of adulthood. And probably the most difficult period of all is when adulthood comes to an end and people's children go off and get married. That is when they reach the most horrible part of their life, because they're completely cut off from the past, except those that want to still meddle in their children's and grandchildren's lives and make them miserable and themselves miserable. But those who face it squarely and see, I have ended that period of my life, parenthood, because my children now go on and become parents themselves. And so I can only be an onlooker into their life. Now what's going to happen to mine? And I know what a terrible period that is for some. Some don't even make it. They just die from the fact that there is no place for them to go. They just cannot drag themselves out of their children's lives or their grandchildren's lives. And life becomes a terrible thing. But if you are to really be mature, you must acknowledge that the time comes when your children's lives are their own and belongs to them and belongs to their children, and you can only be an occasional visitor and an onlooker, but you must make a life for yourself. Now, what that life is going to be may differ with each one. It can be in the cultural fields or scientific fields or educational fields or spiritual fields. But each one has got to make a life for themselves. And I emphasize this for this reason: that you must face the fact that you are going to leave even that phase of life and enter another one, and that you at the present time know least about. But if you face it, you will lose your fear of death, and once you have lost your fear of death, you are wholly on the spiritual path. Then you will realize now that you have no selfhood, because you can't reach this stage until you realize that God is your selfhood. Then you have arrived at least at the entrance to heaven, because now the life you are living is God. God living your life, and of course you're perfectly willing for God to take it around the world or into the next world, since it's His life, not yours. So you see that eventually you will come to this place, and then you will look back and say, no wonder He said you can't know God. that none of these words mean God, because none of these words meant self, and none of them meant myself. Through the principles of the infinite way, you know that you cannot influence God. And therefore, you have made it easier for yourself to pray without words and thoughts. Because if you know in advance that no matter what words or thoughts go through your mind, it isn't going to influence God, you have the ability now to stop thinking thoughts and words. You will discover this to be a fact, that it is only as long as you are believing that your words and thoughts are going to reach God and have some influence with God that they continue. And the sooner you realize, I'm just wasting time, your thoughts will come to a stop, and your prayers will be receptivity, listening, awaiting God's grace, awaiting the still small voice, and then that Spirit of God enters your consciousness consciously, and you become aware of it. In the earlier years of your experience on this path, you are, well, really, for the greater part of your time, you are aware of this inner presence. You are aware of it, as some of you have surely noticed when I'm in class, how sometimes my head will go around like that. And it is when I am aware of the presence. I suppose I know that I'm a teacher on a platform, but I'm also aware of a presence. And when that happens, then I'm no longer aware of a teacher on a platform, and the presence takes over and does the work. And there is no longer two, there is only one. Well, it is that way in meditation and treatment. At first, there is a me listening for the still small voice. There is a me inviting God to speak. But then as I get into that listening attitude, this me disappears. And all there is that presence fulfilling itself. And if somebody's healed, it's doing it. If somebody's benefit, it's doing it. If somebody becomes aware of the presence through the infinite way, this is doing it.
I wonder if you could give us permission to use
And then you begin to understand that I have this hidden manna. It's this presence. This is the secret meat. This is the meat that I have, the Master spoke of. You see, he too was aware of a presence, which he called the Father within. For a long while, he knew that there was myself, Jesus, and I'm aware of the Father within, or a presence. This is my hidden manna. This is the meat the world knows not of. This is the grace of God within me. And as Paul termed it, the Christ liveth my life. There's Paul and Christ. And so, to the outer world, and to ourselves, there is me, but now aware that I'm not living my life, that it is this that is doing it, this presence, this grace. And Saroyan said in one of his books that I just go along for the ride. And that is where I am in my work. That is where Jesus was in his work. That is where Moses was in his work when he knew that there was something speaking through him. But each of us, and this will happen to you, in certain periods of meditation, more especially when the work is for others and the world, when there is no more you to yourself, it completely disappears, and this presence is all there is. And it must have been in such a moment that the Master said, "Thou seest me, thou seest the Father that sent me, for I and the Father are one." There is not me and God. This is God. And that is why he could say that inasmuch as ye did it not unto the least of these my brethren, ye did it not unto me, God. Because the least of these my brethren also is God. But it's only in the highest moments when selfhood, that is the selfhood called Joel, completely disappears and the Spirit itself is living the life. I don't know what would happen to anybody if they ever attained that and maintained it on earth forever. It is an experience that comes. But for the greater part of our lives, just remember, it is as if there was still a Joel, but he's pretty empty. He has no qualities of goodness because it's the Father working through. He has no evil because if there's any evil that should come through, it's this momentary world hypnotism. He has no evil and he has no good. And he's living always with those ears open, always in an expectancy. And then whatever comes through is the God's presence and God's grace that's coming through. And the rest of him remains, you might almost say, a nothingness. It's really a nothingness because it has no desires, doesn't want to be any place in particular, doesn't want to do anything except what it's doing and what's being done through it, has no hopes, has no ambitions, isn't going to get anywhere. If the whole world embraced the infinite way, it couldn't do a thing to Joel because Joel's already realized that it wasn't his and he didn't do it. Therefore, he'd still be the same onlooker, saying, "What marvelous things God has done. What wonderful things God hath wrought." And that is the goal of the mystical life, to where we are beholders of God in action. And nothing is ascribed to ourselves, not even good motives. And as you know, desire, there just is none. Not even needs, because every need seems to be met before it becomes aware of as a need. That's called living by grace. But you can only live fully by grace as that selfhood, that which has a desire, that which has a hope, that which has an ambition, that which has a selfhood. As that disappears, then life is wholly lived by grace, because it functions to its end, not your end, not my end. You see, if I had something to pray for, it would mean I have an end. But I have nothing to pray for because I have no end. I have no object in life. I have only this minute to live in which I must be fulfilled by the Spirit. And if I have a tomorrow, it will be the same life. And whether it's taking place here, or whether I come to California, or go back to South Africa, or go to England, it won't be any different life than I'm living here. And I won't be there because I desire to be there rather than here, but because I'm sent. Because I don't desire to be any place except where I am sent. And then in the degree of our desirelessness, in the degree of our selflessness, our unselfedness, in that degree is the mystical life lived. And really that is what the mystical life is. It's just the attaining of that degree where you find yourself every day living, but not wondering about tomorrow, because there is no tomorrow for me. There is only tomorrow for God. But I bring you back to our start. Do you see now why it's useless with the mind to try to fathom God? Who can fathom God? And even when God is living your life, God is a mystery. Now, let anyone ask me for help. And do you see that the first thing that takes place in me is that my mind stops functioning and I stop thinking. I think no thoughts of truth. I listen. And that lets the presence and power of God through to you. Whereas the moment I try to think a thought, even of truth, or even of the infinite way, then I'm trying to make thought a power. Or I'm trying to make a statement of truth a power. Now, no statement of truth is a God power. No thought of truth is a God power. Only God is God power. And so if you want God, be still. Be still and let God function, otherwise you're letting your ego in. And what's worse, you're making graven images. Because whether you take a sentence and put it together and call it God power, or whether you take a wooden image and build it and make it God power, or you take a thought and make it God power, what difference does it make? They're all graven images made by man. The only thing that isn't made by man is what functions through man in the silence. That he had nothing to do with. So when I'm asked for help, immediately, no matter what I'm doing, thought stops. And then whatever comes through, that is the presence and power of God that does the work. Sometimes I know what it is. It comes through in a message or words, but 99 times out of 100 I never know. Many times students write me and say, oh, this came to me. I suppose you knew it in advance. No, I didn't know it. I wasn't thinking of them, and I wasn't thinking of what message God was going to have for them. All I did was be absent from the body, be absent from the mind. and let the Spirit perform its function. Not try to do it for the Spirit, not try to do it with the Spirit, but to let the Spirit do it itself, so that I do not have any graven images. Now, any word of God that's in your mind is a word that you created. It's a graven image. Any thought of God that's in your mind, you created, and it's a graven image. And if you want to be absent from the body, even the body of the mind, you must be absent from the body of thought. And then, whatever God is, however God functions, it takes place. And something takes place out there, and it's a miracle to human sense. It's a miracle. But it's not a miracle that I performed, because I well understand the Master when he says, if I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. This power is not mine. This is God. And the more I can refrain from thoughts and be a receptivity, the greater presence and power goes through. Then you ask the question, do we teach this way? No. No, those who are coming here for this instruction are spending a considerable amount of money to do it. And a sacrifice of family duties maybe, or time. The presumption is then that they know what's coming, that it isn't child's play, that they're coming for it, that they're coming to an individual who has lived more than 30 years in this, and who realizes that their years of study have prepared them for this. If it weren't for that, I could go downtown and take a hotel room, and we have 250 to 300 people present at a lecture. Or I could announce a class and have 200 people come here from all over the world for a class. But I'm not doing that. I'm expecting that those who come here, who understand that this is the pearl of great price, for which they're to sacrifice all, that they can accept this. And I can't give this in a lecture hall, and I can't give it in a class where there are beginners. And so, when you are imparting, you must start to impart the principles of this work as they are given in the writings, until you find a student here or a student here that can be carried another step and another step and another step, until you can almost say, stop looking for God. You found him. You're looking at him, without shocking them, and without making them think that a human being is God. Do you see? Jesus couldn't say to everyone, thou seest me, thou seest the Father that sent me. He couldn't. He would have said, why, that rabbi is going around saying he's God. Neither can you say to the person who has lived their entire life in thought, in the mind, in the intellect, neither can you say to them, God is only present when all of that's out. Some of them get so mad they cut you down. Others get so insulted they run away. And so it is then that I am assuming that those who come for this know that I'm revealing to them the fruitage of 40 years practically of spiritual searching, and expecting that when they leave, they're going to be far less concerned about what is God and what is the infinite way, and much more concerned with periods of each day of experiencing God and gradually surrendering the self unto God, while at the same time using all the letter of truth, all of the principles, to lead those who come. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. This is wonderful. So you see that Joel really brings it back to this present moment too. It's like, wow, this is what I love about these 63 talks that he did in Hawaii. It's like they're all like right on, so incredibly present, and that makes them very easy to get into, so to speak. I love that. So thank you for doing that with me. And so for now, I'm going to play and try to play the first kind of Christmas song. It's too early, I know, but still I'm tempted. And I hope to see you next week in the next episode of the tape group, The Truth Unveiled. You will receive another transcript with a video, and hope to see you then. Thank you so much.